The Marlins are coming off of a disappointing weekend in which they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Brewers.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I've been podcasting about the Marlins for 4 seasons. Go hit me up on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every single day. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. A disappointing series, LMF. The Marlins dropped 2 out of 3 to the Brewers. There's some positives to take away. It was a very close, tough-fought series. But, on Friday's episode, I talked about how important it was for the Marlins to win this. Keep the momentum going, the big mo, as you call it, and really kind of stay in the thick of the playoff picture. They couldn't get the job done, so that's the word I'm describing it as. Just disappointing.
It was disappointing, but it was also a fun week. So,
yeah.
You take the good with the bad. The Brewers, on paper, are and should be a better team than the Marlins. And really, Sunday's matchup was a pitching duel, right? Brandon Woodruff, coming off an injury, he hadn't pitched in like 600 days in an MLB game, just really blew us away. But at the same time, Edward Cabrera blew them away. It was really a fun, fast game to be at. It was a pitcher's duel. And if it wasn't for a certain third baseman trying to overachieve and stealing the ball from a shortstop, that we would have been out of that inning, and the 2 runs would have never been scored by the Brewers.
Yeah, the first game of the series, a 1-run loss. Brewers won 6-5, if I'm not mistaken. Otto Lopez tied it up with a big home run, and then you had the Brewers put up 1 in the 8th, and the Marlins had an opportunity to tie it in the 9th. Jesus Sanchez with one of the best, animated at-bats you'll ever see, drawing a lengthy at-bat. It drew a walk, runners on first and second, but Otto Lopez strikes out and to end the ball game. That was a painful loss. The middle game, that was the one the Marlins won. Augustin Ramirez with a big 2-run, 2-out single to salvage a prime scoring opportunity the Marlins had. They had the bases loaded with nobody out, and they were down to their final out without having put a run across the board. So Augustin Ramirez came through. Lake Bacher got the save. Ronnie Enriquez had pitched earlier, so it was Lake Bacher in the 9th inning, 1-2-3 9th inning. And then Sunday's game, you had on paper Edward Cabrera, your best starter, versus Brandon Woodruff. Coming off of injury, he hasn't pitched in 2 seasons. And Woodruff is one of the best pitchers in the National League when he's healthy. There's no doubt about it. He's an ace. And he looked like one. He looked like he didn't miss a beat. The velocity wasn't really there. He was sitting in the low 90s, but it didn't matter. He knew how to pitch, and the Marlins just had no answers for him whatsoever. Edward Cabrera was very, very good, though. And that was my takeaway from Sunday. Even though it was a disappointing loss, Cabrera was great, except for one mistake. He hung a slider and gave up a 2-run bomb. But he went 7 innings of 2-run baseball, didn't walk anyone. That's exactly what I want from Edward Cabrera. That's more than I can bargain for. So very happy with how he looked.
Edward has turned the curve. It's hard for me to get into it because I'm waiting for him to fall back to Mr. Walk 5 batters a game. But right now, he's walked 1 or 2 in the last 2 games total that he's pitched. It's just very nice to see. Unfortunately, we may not see it from the Marlins anymore because he should be traded at this deadline. Get the value now for what you have. I'm going to put Connor Norby on some blow here. I'm going to put him on notice that it is being noticed that he's underperforming. Not that I'm blaming any of these losses on Connor Norby, but man, you got to let the shortstop take that Christian Yelich hit up the middle. You don't know if he would have been safer out. But really, that Edward Cabrera giving up home run may have never had to happen if you let Otto Lopez with the stronger arm take that throw. But Connor Norby's also been up in some big spots over the last 2 series, and he hasn't come through, unfortunately. So putting him not on blast, I just want to see more from him. He's better than he's playing, and it's all in his head. So hopefully he could break through it as well.
Yeah, it's been a rough season for Norby overall. His OPS right now is sitting at 641. And you're below 700 for a third baseman. That's really not what you want to see out of a corner infield spot. Norby, you see glimpses. That's the big thing. You see the glimpses of what he can be. He puts a really good swing on the ball, goes, right center for a jack. He makes a good defensive play here and there. But overall, it's consistency. And I'm still waiting to have that consistent, output from him. I do want to talk about Edward Cabrera a little bit later because you mentioned trading him. And there's this narrative that we should just trade everyone. Everyone with value should be traded. I see it a lot on Twitter, and I want to take the time in the next segment to discuss that. So after, in a few minutes, we'll get to it. But really quickly, I want to talk about Kyle Stowers and the All-Star. Round of applause for Kyle Stowers, his first career, All-Star game. Like, that's a huge accomplishment. So excellent job for the young man battling through adversity last season. Like, everybody doubted him. And Kyle Stowers, fast forward a year later, is a 2025 All-Star and the only Marlins All-Star representative. So really happy for him. I think that's a great accomplishment, and it's well-deserved. This wasn't a cheap, nomination. He earned this. The numbers back it up as well.
Connor Norby's been on fire this year. He definitely deserves Stowers. Stowers. I'm thinking Norby. All right, so I mentioned that because they're best friends, right? They came to this organization together. Kyle Stowers was put in a tough position last year, and it was when he was traded to the Marlins. He was put on the team the day he was traded, stuck into the lineup. It was like he's coming up from, I think he wasn't even on the Orioles. He was coming from their AAA affiliate, made it to the game in Tampa, was thrown into the game, and really knew no one. And that was really how the season went and progressed, where he was just stuck alone. Connor Norby came up. Stowers played a little better. They played a little better together, as best friends should, helping each other boost morale. But really, Kyle Stowers was put in a place, not a failure, but just a strange place. Coming into the offseason, he had all offseason to practice, to get better. He mentioned it in his press conference. I think it was Southern California or somewhere in California. He has a batting practice and whatnot with his friends, and they mentioned you can be an all-star. He comes into spring, underachieves in spring. Sanchez gets injured, which leaves the spot open for Stowers to be on the opening day roster, his first ever. And you know what happens? He wins the game from the start of the season, showing improvement, wins that first game, has a couple walk-offs all season long, 2 or 3 walk-offs. He's really shown he deserves to be the Marlins All-Star. Congratulations, Kyle Stowers. We are proud of you. You are representing us, and I hope you hit a monster dong in the All-Star game in Atlanta.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to get the opportunity to play in Atlanta. Every once in a while you'll have a situation where the roster's just so loaded that a player doesn't get into the game.
The good thing is Clayton McCullough is going to be one of the
true.
managers.
That is true. Good point.
And usually when you have your manager there, you get into the game. So I hope he does too. It won't be till late, right? And think about who didn't make the All-Star, at least the first, notice you're on the team who didn't make the All-Star. Kyle Stowers made it. Juan Soto didn't make it.
Yeah.
Kyle Stowers made it. a lot of other outfielders who could have been on the team did. But being with the rules, Kyle Stowers wasn't just, oh, a Marlin has to be there. He earned his way there.
Huge sense of improvement for Stowers. Really quickly, these numbers here. In 2024, he hit 187 and slugged 304, or slugged 280 against the fastball. That was the biggest issue for Kyle Stowers. Fast forward a season in which he makes his first All-Star game. He's now hitting 299 and slugging 554 against fastballs. An incredible turnaround from the now All-Star. Edward Cabrera was dominant. He pitched 7 innings for the second consecutive outing. I want to talk more about him and also, the idea, like LMF said, of trading him. That's coming up right after this. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. One thing about spending your money is that sometimes there's certain things that just tend to add up, like takeout, for example. You do some DoorDash, you get some Uber Eats here and there. That stuff adds up throughout the week. Same thing with subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu. There's so many different TV shows. MLB TV, that's a big one when you want to watch your Miami Marlins. But Monarch Money is going to help you manage that money and streamline it so you're not really going to have the stress anymore. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Hit that subscribe button for me on the YouTube channel. That's the best way you can help me out. Leave a like. And if you're listening to the podcast, rate and review the show. It's on all the major podcast platforms. Edward Cabrera, 7 innings. He's the only Marlins starting pitcher to go 7 innings this season. He's now done it twice in back-to-back starts against the Twins and against the Brewers. And he got the tough luck loss. He got the loss, but didn't deserve it. He only gave up 2 runs, both of which came on a single homer. I'm so impressed with Edward Cabrera. And you mentioned the fact that you're waiting for him to kind of come back down to earth and start walking guys. For me, Chase, when I see Cabrera pitch, I'm confident. I'm 1,000% confident in him. And it's something I've never felt about him as a pitcher. I used to be like that, where I would just kind of wait. It's the danger zone you're in. But Cabrera just exudes confidence on the mound. It's something that has clicked, for him mentally, and the command-wise is there. He's so confident in his curveball now. The changeup, he can locate his secondaries. He's throwing the sinker a ton more instead of the four-seam fastball, which was never really a good pitch. I'm so confident in Edward Cabrera as a starter now, and it makes me think, when it comes to the trade deadline, you have 3 more years of control. Why should the Marlins trade him right now?
Again, he has a lot of control, but the Marlins have some pitchers that need to make their way up here. There's guys in AAA that should be up here. So you got to make room for these guys. And when a guy like Edward Cabrera is on fire in a time, I don't trust him yet like you do. I think it's nice. I think it's great. I'm not an Edward Cabrera hater, but I've seen it too often against better teams where he falls, and better teams like the Mets. We play them a lot in the second half. Better teams like the Phillies. We play them a lot in the second half, being in our division. We play the Yankees coming up. We play the Red Sox coming up. There's a lot of good teams out there where I don't trust him. So if one of those teams is going to make us an offer, not one we can't refuse, but a good offer for him, being that we have pitchers waiting to come up. We have Rob Snelling. We have Adam Mazur, who we saw for one start. Guys who can replace Cabrera in a lineup on a year you're not winning, when you're in a time of rebuild for 2 years, get what you can back for him. Wish him the best, like you did Luzardo, but get more from him than you could in a Luzardo trade, who only had 2 years left when Cabrera has 3.
Did the Marlins execute that Luzardo trade well, in your opinion?
They did it too late, right?
They butchered it.
They waited, and you can't do that again.
I think Luzardo, they didn't. What the Marlins did with Jesus Luzardo is, yes, they waited, but once he was injured, it only made sense to me to trade him this deadline. Let him get healthy, let him execute what he has, come back to the mound, showcase that he's still a viable starter and still a very good starter. And they didn't. They sold low, and now they have Starlin Caba, which I like as a prospect, but he's not performing well. And now you're without one of your big trade chips in Luzardo.
Agreed, but look how Luzardo's pitched over his last 6 starts. 3 good, 3 bad. He would have lost a lot since the beginning of the season where he was on fire.
Right.
He's coming back down to earth as we've known him as. You hope he doesn't get injured in here, but he would have lost some value. And would you have been able to get the type of trade, being that you only have 2 years left of 3 years? Again, they butchered it twice, right? They did it too early this season. They did it too late from the original when he should have been traded before last season in 24.
But there also comes a point where you stop trading and you start building. And what I mean by that is you establish internally who's going to be here, who's going to be part of the future. And I go on Twitter and I see all these people start going, oh, let's trade Stowers. What if we get an offer we can't refuse? Let's trade Dane Myers right now. Okay. They wanted to trade, they want to trade everybody. They want to trade Cabrera. They wanted to trade, Sandy's obvious. Enriquez is interesting because, yes, he's a bullpen piece, but he has 6 years of control, and he was a waiver claim. There's no need to trade him right now. And that's what I'm saying. Now, who's going to be part of the future? Like, who?
Well, I'm on board with you in not trading Stowers. I'm not for extending Stowers.
Right. It doesn't make sense to.
Right. You have too much control. All these people, are you going to trade? No, you hold on to these guys. You fill your roster. You enjoy them. See if they do well to offer a trade. Like, what's the guy's name on Pittsburgh? Brian Reynolds, right?
Mm-hmm.
They waited to extend him, and now they regret extending a 31-year-old. You don't want that to happen with the outfielders we have now. Enjoy what they are. Sanchi, that I believe he's gone, right? We've talked about that.
Yes, I think so.
But focusing on Edward here, he's not part of this future. They have too much available in which Bendix. Think about the Bendix era. The Bendix era has made some trades already to build for the future. We have Thomas White, part of the future, right? You have Snelling, part of the future. You have Mazur, part of the future. And those could be bullpen pieces if need be. We don't know where Mayer's going to be. He's part of the future. And Noble is coming up.
Max Meyer?
Because you can't trade him, at least for now.
I don't think years. I'm going to, this is just how I feel at this point. I'm done with Max Meyer. I do not, in my opinion, he's not going to alter the Marlins' future for good or for bad. I think with the issue I have with trading Cabrera now, and it's not that I'm completely against it. It's just I bristle at the idea, let's trade him because he has value. Because if Cabrera has truly figured it out, for the next 3 years, you have an ace. You have somebody that's going to, his last 7 starts, I don't think people are realizing just how good he's been. He's been elite. He's been like pitching as a Cy Young contender. 1.88 ERA over his last 7 starts, 38 innings, 37 strikeouts, a whip of 1.04. You could trade him, but the only reason you trade him is for an absolute haul where you're getting 2 or 3, stud prospects, kind of like, I'm trying to think of a comparison where I could, like, I don't know, when the Cubs and the Cubs and the Mets, where Javier Baez and you get PCA, who develops into an all-star, an absolute slugger, some sort of impact talent, not guys in low A like Starlin Cabo, where it's just kind of a shot in the dark. I don't know, because it's 3 years of control. That's a ton of control. Kyle Stowers, ton of control. Not a free agent until 2030. Ryan Weathers. There was talk when Ryan Weathers was doing well. Oh, let's trade Ryan Weathers. No, at some point you got to keep these guys. And I'm throwing Edward Cabrera in the conversation to be kept. But we'll see what happens.
Look at the Luis Castillo deal. I don't remember exactly what Seattle gave up to the Reds, but you got to look at it like that. He had a couple years left of control. They could extend him. We're not extending Cabrera, right? He's not part of the 5-year future of us. He could be here for another 3. But do you want to would you rather him lose stock, start playing like old Cabrera, and then not be able to move him for anything but a Starlin Caba kind of deal? No,
it's sell high.
Right, sell high. This is a gamble at this point. You got to sell high on him, wish him the best, hope he does well in the playoffs for a team like the Yankees who can use him, the Cubs, and get something back. I would love to take something from the Cubs farm system. They have a great farm system. Detroit, great farm system. You got to make like that Seattle type of deal.
Yeah, and ultimately, for all the listeners or watchers out there, I think Cabrera gets traded. For the record, I think he gets dealt to the deadline, and the Marlins are going to get a very exciting return, because with the years of control, that's what's going to be required to get Cabrera on your team. You're going to have to pay up, and Peter Bendix knows that and knows the leverage that he can play. What I'm doing, though, is I'm saying, kind of being devil's advocate, in the sense that we're going to have to build at some point. Like, when do you stop the trading? I'm not in support of trading Kyle Stowers, because he's not a free agent for another half decade. Dane Myers, I talked with Eli Sussman about this earlier this season. It's one of those things, like, if you get the value, if you get an offer you can't refuse, that's one thing. But beyond the trading, and I talked about this in the last show, you're going to have to make a commitment financially to a couple of guys, and that's Yuri Perez, Augustin Ramirez. You couple that with, keeping Kyle Stowers. Okay, you're finally building. You're not just selling. Let's talk about this Red Series. The Marlins heading up to Cincinnati. They're going to have some Skyline chili up there and take on the Red Stockings. So we're going to preview that and what the Marlins have to do to be successful right after this. Thank you to all the everyday listeners out there being part of the Locked On Marlins crew. LMF is on the show this beautiful Monday morning or afternoon, whenever you're listening. Marlins and the Reds in Great American Ballpark. Pitching matchups. It's a 4-game series. On Monday, you have Jansen Junk versus the righty Brady Singer. Tuesday, Yuri Perez versus Nick Martinez. Wednesday, Sandy Alcantara versus Andrew Abbott. And then that Thursday game, it's not a day game. Still in the evening, Nick Lodolo for the Reds, and then we don't know who's going for the Marlins. I would assume it's Edward Cabrera, but you never know. What do you think about this series in terms of the Marlins wild card chances?
The Marlins need a lot to happen to get to the playoffs. I'm not thinking playoffs, to be frank with you. I'm thinking close to 500. I'm thinking 74, 75 wins. The Marlins, if they win the next 7 series, they can get to 500 by August 10th. That would be an achievement. But regarding them potentially making the playoffs in that wild card, to answer your question, they need to take 3 or 4 from the Reds, and that's not going to be easy. Can they? Yes, the hitting needs to stay on. Xavier Edwards needs to hit the ball like he was hitting it at Lone Depot Park, and he'll have 2 home runs at Great American Ballpark. So if that can happen, the Marlins can take this series 3 of 4. I'll take a tie. You can't lose 3 of 4. So I expect in any 4-game series a split. Take 3 games here. The Baltimore Orioles are next to finish out the first half of the season. That's the week ahead. And if you can go 4-3 in the next 7 days, I would love for that to be the outcome.
Yeah, so in terms of the wild card, because it is fun, the Marlins got themselves to 6.5 games back. They're now 7.5 back. The Reds are 46 and 44, 2.5 games back. Atlanta Braves, geez, they have fallen off a cliff. 39 and 50. Their season's cooked. They're going to be sellers at the deadline, and there's a chance that they trade Acuna. There's a legitimate chance that they start rebuilding from scratch, and they just tear this whole thing up. The Marlins and the Reds, it's a unique series because not unique. It's just one of these series that I don't really watch Reds baseball a lot unless they play the Marlins. They're just kind of one of those teams. They're just there, doing their thing in Cincinnati. I think it's a good opportunity for Miami in that ballpark to kind of get the bats right again. It's a very hitter-friendly ballpark. I'd love to see Augustine just tee off and hit nukes. Same thing with Jesus Sanchez, get his power back into things. And you said Xavier Edwards would have had 2 homers had he played that series in Cincinnati. I think Xavier Edwards finishes the year without a homer, and he's the only qualified player to do so. But, when you're against the Brewers and that's the team, you hit your first homer, and you came so close, maybe 2 feet from getting your second, and you don't. Maybe that's just how it's meant to be. We don't need him to hit homers. Just let him do his thing, slap the ball the other way, get on base.
I was going to say, there's 2 Mickey Mouse ballparks, Great American Ballpark and Milwaukee, whatever they're calling that place now. So if he's going to do it, he's going to hit one in one of those spots. And if he's hitting, look, he's been elevating the ball more. He's been whacking the ball to deep center field at Lone Depot Park. There's no reason he can't come out with at least 1 home run this series. It would be nice to see it for him. He's the only qualified hitter in Major League Baseball to not have a home run. So let's get him off that list.
I was watching ESPN the other day, just happened to glance up, and it was the little score ticker at the bottom of the screen. It said Marlins, lose to the Brewers, whatever. And it said Marlins 2-3 after going eight straight wins. And I was like, that's such an obscure stat. ESPN is such a bad network now. We're going to close in a second, but Bobby Jenks, the closer for the White Sox, he passed away. He had stomach cancer. He passed away on July 4th, 44 years old, gone way too early. And, thoughts and prayers with his family and everyone that knew him. And I'm not a White Sox fan, and Bobby Jenks was a player before my time. But ESPN put out a tweet, and they pretty much said, Bobby Jenks, who was on the roster when the White Sox won the World Series, passes away. And I said, that's just disgusting. Just disgusting disrespect to one of the flamethrowers, one of the cataclysts who carried the White Sox to a World Series championship. He was their closer, racking up those saves. And you have somebody actually type up that post, look it over, and then send it to the world. I just thought that was really, really sad to see and disgusting from one of the world's top networks.
It was horrible. One word could have changed that. Main part of the roster.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you wonder why they didn't include. He wasn't just a part of the roster. As you said, he was a catalyst for that 2005 World Series team.
Yeah, 2005.
Yep. And I also want to give my thoughts and prayers to his family, as you just did. Baseball's a community. We all don't cheer for the same team. But when the fallen go down, the Bob Ukers of the world, people that made a difference in the ball game, and he did, winning a world championship. We all stick together and we give our sentiments. So may he not be suffering anymore from what he was suffering from cancer, and we hope his family heals as quick as possible.
Absolutely. That's going to wrap up today's show. On a bit of a sadder note, but I had to say something about that. One of the legends in Chicago White Sox, and like you said, baseball is a family. We're all in the baseball community. And that's what makes a sport so great. Everybody coming together. It's America's pastime. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate everybody for listening. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.